Good morning, church. Today, as we think about the grief that David experienced, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt alone in your grief, like wondering if anyone else could understand your sorrow? We grieve deeply because we love deeply. And today we continue our series, Living and Active, a God who enters our lives and walks with us. I'd like to draw inspiration from the life of David, who suffered a tremendous loss, a loss like many of us have experienced in our lives. We've walked together long enough that we've shared many losses and joys together. Now Saul was the first king of Israel, and Jonathan was his son. And Jonathan was David's dearest friend, and they have fallen in battle. Their deaths are deeply personal losses for David. Yet he did something remarkable in his grief. He did not hide his sorrow. David, all-powerful, did not hide his sorrow. Instead, he bravely called the whole community to join him in his grief. He invited everyone to lament with him, to honor the deep emotions that come with loss. I recall a friend many years ago. Despite an unexpected loss of a very young father, she bravely returned to work. And she wore a black armband at work, signaling mourning. And this was a very buttoned-up office. But she wore that armband not to hide her grief, but to share it. And her courage in sharing her sorrow allowed other co-workers to extend empathy and care, demonstrating that strength comes from communal grieving. And I share this story because the world beyond the doors of our church often encourages us to rush through grief, to keep it private, and to quickly to fix it. Yet David's story shows us the deep wisdom of our faith. It shows us another way. Grief and lament hold a significant place in our lives as people of faith. And David's lamentation over Saul and Jonathan serves a poignant reminder that we all experience loss in our life. So whether those losses are loved ones or economic hardships or life transitions or times of tragedy in our nation or injustice in our world, these are shared experiences that we must make space to name and to feel. Because it's in these shared experiences that we find common ground, understanding, and a sense of our community. Our faith encourages us to acknowledge our grief and to bring it to God by gathering together and sharing it with others. This communal grieving is a testament to our trust in God's presence, even in our darkest and saddest moments. Communal lament, it's not just a practice, it's an experience that transforms us. It allows us to bear each other's burdens and find strength in our sorrows. It transforms individual grief into collective healing, uniting us in a shared experience. So when we lament together, we affirm that no one is alone in their pain. No one. And we create a safe space where grief can be expressed, tears can be shed, and we are held tenderly through the shared compassion and support of community. So, what does that look like for us? How do we as a community participate in communal lament and hold each other closely? Well, I can think of many examples, and I'll start with just two. Holy Week. Holy Week is our annual journey through lament to hope, and it illustrates this communal lament. We celebrate Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem and then very quickly his arrest, his trial, his suffering, and his death. This journey, we do not rush through it. We go slowly together, and so that when we arrive at Easter morning, we have made space for mourning, for reflection, and ultimately the joy and gift of resurrection. Holy Week is so important because it teaches us to sit with our sorrow, to acknowledge the weight of our grief. It embodies the patience required for grief. Grief takes time. It reminds us that new life often starts in the darkness of our sorrow. Another way that we can share our sorrow and our grief is through a ministry that we're starting here called Stephen Ministry. And it is so exciting because it is a group of lay members like you who will be expertly trained to offer one-on-one listening and care for parishioners who are experiencing crisis, loss, or a difficulty in life. So if you would like to discern a call to serve or to learn more about this amazing ministry, go see Donna Barr and Elizabeth Woodward because they are heading up this ministry for us. You'll be hearing more about it in the weeks ahead. Stephen Ministry helps us to see that our personal losses are part of a larger human experience. They remind us that we are all part of a caring community. We care for each other and will come and walk with each other in our sorrows. Because grief is where God, who is living and active, holds us. God does not abandon us in our grief. Instead, God walks with us and is redeeming our suffering and bringing forth new life. The preacher and author Barbara Brown Taylor wisely observes in her beautiful book, Walking in the Dark. She says, "I have learned things in the dark that I could never have learned in the light. New life starts in the dark, whether it's a seed in the ground, a baby in the womb, or Jesus in the tomb. New life starts in the dark." Just as David publicly lamented over Saul and gathered the community around him, and as we journey through Holy Week together and will care for each other with this beautiful Stephen Ministry, let us remember that while grieving is painful, grieving together is bold, it is courageous, and it brings life and healing. So please, pray with me. Loving God, you are our greatest source of comfort and strength. As Jesus taught us to embrace both the joy and the sorrow of our lives, we give thanks that you are a God who is living and active and transforms our grief into new beginnings. Amen.